I do hope now that you have some food for thought as we prepare for our next panel, where we are going to be hearing from industry leaders in some critical industries in New Jersey to talk about the experience on the ground. We recognize that employers are ultimately the recipients of our workforce system, and so we want to kind of gauge who are you receiving? What are these individuals? What are their skill sets? What are the gaps that exist? Where are some opportunities? How are you having to supplement? With the hopes that this conversation will enlighten us as we prepare for our breakout sessions in a few minutes. All right, so with that, I'm going to introduce our next panel. So we have joining with us Susan LaMonica, Chief Human Resource Officer with Citizens, Cyndie Willams, Executive Director of the Carpenter Contractor Trust, Deborah Visconi, President and CEO of Bergen Newbridge Medical Center, Denise Beckson, Vice President and Chief Administrative and External Affairs Officer with Morey's Piers and Resorts, and our moderator, Kristi DeAngelis, CEO and founder of Work Dynamics. Ladies, can you please join us on the stage?
Good morning. So nice to be here today. I'm actually really excited about this discussion. Working in my industry, I work nationwide with companies that are hiring and dealing with workforce solution challenges. And so many of the things we're talking about today happen in the everyday conversations with my clientele. I also love to hear the things that we're trying to do to bring all these silos together, because I sit on two boards. One is for the Metro YMCA of the Oranges. We're one of the largest YMCAs, and we've just joined a consortium with the universities to help with educating our workforce, as well as I sit on the board of Patriots Path Council for Scouting America, again, who's also looking at ways to how can we get our youth more involved and learning things at an earlier age. So I'm excited to hear what you ladies have to say today. So let me just get started. Again, I thank you all for being here. We're going to be talking about something today that every organization is feeling in real time. The workforce is changing faster than most systems, structures, and strategies can keep up with. What are we going to unpack is not just what's happening, it's where things are breaking down, where expectations have shifted, and what organizations are actually doing to stay competitive in a market that continues to get more complex. So with that being said, I'm going to just open up with a generic question and feel free to answer, whoever's most comfortable. But from an employer perspective, where do you see the biggest disconnect between available jobs and candidate awareness within your industry? How does this challenge show up in New Jersey, and how are you addressing it? Who would like to take this one?
I can kick it off.
Sure, go for it.
Great to be here, everybody. Deb Visconi, President and CEO of Bergen Newbridge Medical Center. And what I would say to you is that it's not so much about awareness, but it's about clarity. It's about making sure that the job seekers are aware but clear on what the job is. And you heard the Lieutenant Governor say earlier, there's thousands of jobs out there in New Jersey. So how come we're not hiring them? Where are they? Where is the workforce? How are they finding us? I think it's clarity of the way we advertise our jobs, our positions. It's about the way that we post them so that individuals know what they're applying for. It's about giving them that career pathway, not just the job title. Like, how do you get from where you are today to where you want to be? It's about unpacking, what that posting on that job description is. And I don't know how many corporations, most of them do have that screening thing, right? That HR screening thing that, many people fall out because they don't check those boxes.
Yes.
But the reality is that's a real vibrant part of the workforce that we should be tapping into. Yeah. And the individuals just don't know what they're applying for and how to match their skills to what the job really is. So I think it's more about clarity than awareness.
It's interesting you say that, because I actually work with clients to develop their job descriptions to be job postings. Two very big differences. Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with the AI that you're experiencing right now, I feel like it's scrubbing everyone's answers and kicking them out. But I can tell you want to say something.
Yeah, Susan LaMonica, I run human resources for Citizens Bank, and I would agree with that. I mean, I think in financial services and in banking, I think one of the things that we're up against is that oftentimes, people don't really understand the kinds of opportunities that could be available. People associate banking with branch jobs, right? Because we all can understand that, we see that. But the reality is, just here in New Jersey alone, we have, close to 290 different roles that people can access, from HR roles to data roles to customer service roles to operations, technology. So I think one of the things that we struggle with and that we're very intentional about is, how can we storytell so that we bring some of these opportunities to life. And I think, also I think in banking, oftentimes people, especially as a super regional bank, people don't think that we're as tech forward and tech leaning as in fact we are. And so, being very intentional around how we storytell to different populations of people, and to your point, showing people the pathway of how do I get from here to there, because sometimes I think it can be, it can be quite daunting, and it creates barriers, quite frankly.
Sure, go ahead.
I agree with what my colleagues have said. I'm Denise Beckson from Morey's Piers in Wildwood, New Jersey. If you're not familiar with us, we are a seasonal business that operates primarily in the summer with amusement piers, water parks, hotels, and resorts. I have 3 buckets of employees. So the first being seasonal, which is comprised mostly of teens, college students, some teachers looking for supplemental summer work, and retirees. Then we have our skilled trades, which are HVAC, carpentry, ride mechanics, and then our administrative jobs, which would be IT, marketing, et cetera. When I put my lens on for teens, the largest group of our 3 buckets would be our seasonal employees. And when I think about workforce connection and communication, I have a real problem because the summer job used to be a rite of passage. You looked forward to that. It has become passé. People do not understand the value of it, and they don't see a summer job as summer work as workforce development. A lot of parents tell their kids, you don't have to get a summer job, focus on something that'll help you get into a good college. You have your whole life to work. And so teen employment since 1979 has decreased 52%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that decline is structural. I was really encouraged with some of the information that Nicole presented. I saw it was a little flat. I think there might be, we're losing teens in summer jobs. Maybe we're picking them up in more of the year-round jobs. I'm not sure. I'd love to delve into that more. But we know in general we've had a 4-decade decline and a real shift in how parents view that summer job. And so that's a big issue for us.
I actually find that fascinating because I think about how, for me, it was a rite of passage. I think I started working at 14 under the table. But yeah, everyone is pushing your kids towards college. I think my parents said, you have a choice. We'll pay for your wedding or we'll pay for college. Never was a chance that I wasn't going to college. And I have nothing against it. I graduated. I love education. But I feel like there's so much missed about the real workforce. And when I was working, I was a busser, a runner, a waitress, a cabana, so I think that's critical information. But I also think there's a whole other gap we're missing about when we're talking about our labor workforce. So there's a lot of workers that are sidelined right now. We heard them talking about it with Alice and so forth, with transportation, childcare, lack of digital access. How is your organization adapting to strategies to tap into these overlooked talent pools? And I'll open this up to the floor.
I'll jump in.
Please, go ahead.
My name is Cyndie Willams. I work on behalf of the Carpenter Contractor Trust, which is the labor management for the Carpenters Union. So I work to connect our contractor base to our membership, which is about 13,000 strong in the state of New Jersey, as well as 5 other states. In reference to closing the gap, as far as programs, we really look to connect, and I'll go back to my the last question I didn't get a chance to answer. Sure. We need to connect to schools, and we've been trying that pathway to get back into student counselors' conversations in regards to trades, because not everyone is cut out to go to college, and it's been the narrative for so long. We're starting to see that trend shift for the union, for construction trades in general, on both sides of the aisle, non-union and union. We just want to connect to folks that are looking to do hands-on work. But as far as programs, We're developing programs. We've started pre-apprenticeship programs that are really giving folks that need a lift access to transportation, connecting to the right resources on the state level, as well as grant programs that we have been awarded on the union side to be able to connect to schools, connect to pre-apprenticeship programs, and really remove those barriers. So we look to help in any way that we can. And childcare, especially in construction, is a tough one because they're on the job at 7 a.m. So someone who has child care needs, it's a special connection to, say, care.com, where they can hire and get resources for money to pay for someone to come to the house if it's too early to start to get to daycare. So those are the types of resources we're looking into.
I think that childcare is almost as important as elder care that we're experiencing right now. And there's a lot of great organizations that I think are pushing initiatives. You've got Moms First working for childcare and advocating. You've got elder care. What are you all doing to make sure you're giving opportunities to those that are dealing with those frustrations with elder care, child care? Are you doing financial aid coverage? Are you doing flex schedules? How are you approaching it?
I mean, we're doing all of the above. Our workforce really resembles and mirrors the communities that we serve. So we know our employees suffer from food insecurity, housing insecurity, transportation insecurity. So we spend a lot of time, my senior team and I, really listening to the voices of our employees. We have open door policies, and we really welcome our employees to come and share with us some of the hardships that they might have in getting to the workplace and, you know, being fully employed. And so we have done a lot of things like stipends, and we have tuition reimbursement programs now that we offer, and loan repayment programs for people going to college, and also attracting talent, not just retaining talent, but attracting talent with loan repayment programs. We're going to open a child care center on our property because that was really one of the things that we heard loud and clear from our employee base, that child care is an issue for them. And we offer them flexible working schedules. So we know there's a single parent that can't get to work at 7 a.m., so they can start, you know, for the later shift. And we have tools that now our employees can pick a shift that they can work and want to work. So it's no longer you must work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, like in the olden days, right? The boomers, that was what our work schedule was. You signed up for a job and that was your schedule. So we allow our clinical staff, our frontline staff, to be able to pick their schedules that work for their life. And, you know, it's more like a work-life balance opportunity for them.
Susan, I saw you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with much of what has been said. I mean, we do many similar things. One thing that I would add is I do think we talk a lot about culture, and we talk a lot about, you know, creating an environment where people can thrive across all aspects of their lives. And so we're very committed to ensuring that colleagues can be successful at work, they can be successful in their home lives, and really trying to provide resources and supports across that broad domain. But it really does start with leaders, and we put a lot of emphasis in our company around, I often say leaders are the Uber lever. If you don't get that right, it's, you know, you're gonna have suboptimal results. And so ensuring and working with our leaders to ensure that we're creating an environment that is, you know, that is flexible, that values flexibility, that values the whole person is really critical. And that has been, you know, it's not perfect, but it has been certainly, I think, quite helpful.
Okay. Anyone want to add anything else before I move on? Nope. Okay. Cyndie, I want to direct a question to you. So the construction trade offers strong wages without a traditional four-year degree, but what barriers still exist in getting young people and parents to see these careers as first choice options?
Great question. So going back to my theme of school, the union really has had that blue-collar reputation for so many years. But really, the reality is, as you mentioned, union apprenticeship is sort of the gold standard as far as placement, right? It's higher wages, it's health benefits, it's retirement, dignity in retirement, right? So that said, and I'm a product of this as well, I grew up in a household that valued education. And lately, and in the last, I'd say 10, 15 years, we've attuned ourselves to really link with college educators, programs that are gonna align and allow our apprentices on the job site to receive college credits and workforce credits that apply to colleges. So by the time an apprentice in our organization comes through their apprenticeship, they can have an associate's degree, and with a few other pickups for their workforce experience, a few other pickups with the college, be it TESU or Rowan University. To name a few, we're aligned with many different community colleges as well. We see the value, they see the value, and it also creates a better leader on the job site. So not only are they bringing more folks through their doors, we have a collaboration with them that they can teach them sort of business management, labor management, other degrees that are applicable to our career needs. And so with that said, we have great partners out there, and we also have a talented pool of people that can go on and do these leadership roles.
So you said something that was interesting, is it's always been traditional school. We were saying that earlier. And I feel like a lot of us, when I can say maybe 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I would have interns coming in and they would say, I've learned more here in 3 months than I've learned in 3 or 4 years of college. So with that gap in mind, and I'm going to open this up to everyone again, you're all downstream of the education system. How well do you feel that today's high schools, CTE programs, and colleges are truly preparing candidates for your hiring needs? Where are the gaps between what's being taught and the skills you require, and how are you communicating those back to the educators, especially because many of them are in this room that can help make that change?
Well, there's a lot there in that question.
I know.
I think that we're seeing, in general, a lack of field applicability. So really good content knowledge, theoretical knowledge, but when it comes to actually applying it in the workforce, there's a lack of understanding there.
Yes.
We have, within the last 2 years, created a position at the director level in our company. We now have a director of curriculum and training, so that was a brand new position because of this skills application gap. We've hired a trainer, full-time trainer. Of course, we had trainers for our seasonal positions, but I'm talking full-time right now. We have a trainer in our full-time in our maintenance department in our skilled trades, and we're hiring a second because we need to ensure that how the physics and the different components of the mechanical engineering and pieces that they've learned like that can actually apply to the rides and to the systems. And it's a bit of a problem right now.
I would recommend, and I want to keep this question going, but I just joined the Scouting America, as I was mentioned, and one of the things that I was not aware of is that Scouts are actually looking for businesses to host those scouting programs where their students can come in and learn all of the fundamentals as they go into their careers. And I know there's a lot of other programs like that, Junior Achievement and so forth. Are you all using or partnering with any organizations like this to bring in those students and get them exposed and hopefully mold them into future hires?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work with a number of partners. Junior Achievement is one. Year Up is a program that we've had great success with. We've had, over 450 interns come through, citizens. Over 200 have had full-time employment. We've got 100 currently employed with us today, and that has been a great source of talent. And there's a whole host of other programs that we're doing. I mean, I think to answer your question, when you look out in terms of the future, and I thought some of the presentations earlier were great in terms of, I think, framing the conversation today. The skills are, even if jobs are going to, the number of jobs are going to remain relatively static, which is kind of my view. The kinds of skills that you need are going to change quite dramatically. And so there is going to be this displacement, and really helping and ensuring that that our educational system is investing in developing the right skills. So it is digital fluency, which we talk about quite a bit, but it's a lot of the quote unquote softer skills. We need, people who have higher levels of problem solving abilities, critical thinking, judgment, learning agility. I mean, if you had to say to me, what's the one skill that is most important as we look forward, it's learning agility and adaptability. Can people learn? Because things are changing at such a quick pace, we can't possibly teach everybody everything they need to know. So people who have that kind of learning mindset, and all of you in the room, I think can be really quite helpful in working with us in supporting that.
Susan, with your space evolving quickly, going off of what you're talking about right now, we're seeing rapid shifts towards digital as we're seeing in all these presentations, and you're talking about, do you feel that the traditional degrees are keeping pace with the skills you need and hiring for competencies over credentials?
I mean, listen, I think we're all having a hard time keeping up. It is, things are changing, I think, so rapidly. And I, when you think about the labor force demographics, we just aren't going to have enough people. So the work that we all need to do to look at alternative pathways, many of you in the room are involved with programs that help to provide, an on-ramp to folks through non-traditional pathways, I think is really critical. And a lot of the work that we're doing, we invest a lot of money internally within the bank to upskill and reskill our colleagues. And it's becoming an expectation in terms of what we expect of our colleagues going forward.
I can tell you want to say something, Cyndie.
Sure, yeah. So going back to the groups and organizations, I think it's so critically important to be involved in those programs. The Lieutenant Governor mentioned faith-based programs. I'm so excited about that, to bring a coalition of faith-based leaders together to try to help with that pipeline, I think is so critically important. But also just the groups that are already out there, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the Big Brothers Big Sisters Clubs, the jobs program that is Justice Impact. We're involved in all of those programs and look to kind of connect for pipeline for jobs for that. So really, happy to mention all of our groups that we can align to. But as far as talent pipeline, really quick, some of the things that we're doing to get ready for this cliff for baby boomers is really changing some of our apprenticeship ratios on the job site so that contractors are forced to hire more apprentices so that they can get trained on job sites instead of, just a journeyman with one apprentice.
I'm gonna pin that because I can tell that you want to say something because I have a follow-up on that. But please go ahead, Denise.
Well, just to add to what my colleagues have already said, but I think, to the short answer to your first question about, what are the gaps, I think work readiness, beyond just the skill to do the job, but it's about really consistency, reliability, work ethic, teamwork. We call them soft skills, but they're beyond that, because once you get to the front lines, and whatever that job may be, whether you're in the trades or you're a nurse, it doesn't matter. You're in team-based work. You're not just sitting behind a computer screen. I think a lot of what we see is this new gen coming out is used to being in front of a computer screen in a little Zoom box, and a lot of the interpersonal skills and emotional readiness is not there. So that's part of the gap that we see, the digital fluency we talked about. We do tremendous work with interns, and we partner with many, many people in this room on the higher ed side and high schools. We try to get them in at the high school level now. Our summer internship program at the college level had 1,800 applicants to our hospital. We could only take 40 at a time. Wow. These kids, they need a place to learn and to really have on-the-job training. And we custom make their internships. Not every kid wants to be a nurse, and there's social workers and all kinds. We have biomedical engineers. We have people that want to do food service work, environmental security officers. There's such a plethora of opportunities. And, I love sitting next to you, Cyndie, because we started an apprenticeship program for the trades at my hospital. Now, hospital people, we're really siloed. We think in one way about clinical, right? So you won't necessarily see a hospital CEO talking about an apprenticeship for trades. So we partnered with our county technical schools. They get the academic work at the school, and they come to us to learn about carpentry and HVAC and electrical and plumbing. And then we give them jobs, because that workforce is aging out very rapidly. Right, they're all leaving us. So that's just another pipeline of talent into our system, and also for the community, because they can work anywhere once they get trained by us. So we have a lot to offer in that regard in terms of partnerships with schools, internships, and we also do a lot of work now with Project Search and Spectrum for the developmentally disabled population. We give them internships at our hospital, we train them on the job, and then we hire them. And they become part of our workforce and part of our team members. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
I do want to touch back on something you said, Susan, too, because going back to the initial question of what can our schools help teach, a lot of those soft skills you talked about, but the number one thing I come across with everyone outside of the learning agility is the critical thinking that you mentioned. So if I were to ask for anything, is in our systems to teach critical thinking, as well as the ability of what a manager truly is. I can't tell you how many times I go into companies and managers don't know how to manage. and they're asking us to come in and help them, and it's because they thought, oh, I want to be a manager, but they don't understand what that responsibility is. It's not just a title. So I would ask that you talk about that. But let's go back to the apprenticeships. So Cyndie, I know you keep talking about them and how you've done a lot. It's a gold standard in your industry. Where do you still see gaps in scaling these programs? Because I have clients ask me all the time, I want to start an apprentice program, but I don't know where to start. Who can I talk to?
Sure. Well, that's a good question. I know for us, we work handily with the state of New Jersey. I think they are an incredible resource just to get started because industries change. I mean, college courses. I know the community colleges are really trying to ramp up their access to credit and non-credit jobs, and I happen to sit on a community college that is doing just that. Their nursing program is through the roof. They're really aligning their programs to meet the needs of business and business communities. So I would say utilizing state resources is the first place to start. Okay. And then connecting to pipelines of folks that are in coalitions as far as apprenticeship are concerned. I know we're among many of them. NJ Pathways is one of them. Yep. Just to get those resources and not operate in silos, because I think that's really the problem that we have and why I love these types of events today, because we connect to people that have our same interests.
I have to jump in though, because Denise, your workforce is very different than the rest of the ladies up here. So how do you go approaching your pipeline, especially since you shared earlier, teens are walking away from that opportunity?
Well, we've really had to shift how we advertise our jobs. So it's not so much learn and earn, which is maybe something we used in the past, and now hiring with a dollar rate. It's about talking about the fun, the socialization, and the skills that they're going to learn in the workplace, and trying to talk to their parents about that and message that. All of the problems that we've identified here, I think also in the New Jersey and BIA blueprint for New Jersey, talk about these soft skills, the critical thinking, the problem, the responsibility, reliability. These are all things that we teach. When someone comes to work for us at 16 years old and they're a lifeguard, they are guarding lives. Yeah. When they are running a ride, they are working on million-dollar machinery that people are strapped into, going 60 miles an hour upside down. If that doesn't teach responsibility, I don't know what does. So I think that we are an underutilized opportunity in the workforce pipeline. And if we can have more people understand, you put an internship out, 1,800 people apply. If I had 1,800 people apply, I would be more than staffed. That would be fantastic. I'd be so excited. Please do send me some. Yes, but you're learning those skills there that develop and shape the person that you become. That then send into the pipeline. If we can flood our pipeline, a rising tide lifts all boats. And then we are the training ground, myself and the other colleagues in the tourism sector, that then send people out to their career jobs with that experience. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure I answered your question, but I was very excited about and hearing what some of the needs are and really knowing we can partner in that process.
Well, no, I think you answered it in a way. It's creating excitement about the job. And I think that's what we all have to do, is helping people realize that jobs are fun. You learn, it challenges your brain, and how can we let them know that? And I think we said early on, all of you have touched on your job postings, they have to actually be a selling point. Why should you come work for that company? What do you offer? What will you gain from being here? Because that ties into one of the next questions we had, is what candidates want today is very different than even a few years ago. So what are you saying specifically in your branding, in your postings, that's attracting this newer audience, knowing they have completely different goals? It's not the days where my father stayed with the government for 40 years and retired and got a watch. It's not like that anymore. So what are you all doing to really attract that talent and change the story?
I'll start, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. I mean, our view is, our value proposition, as I said earlier, is really built on ensuring that people can succeed across all aspects of their lives. And so, our commitment is to, obviously good paying roles, but that's not really what, that's kind of the price of admission and the expectation and the baseline expectation. But it's really, providing people with an opportunity to continuously learn and grow. And, this has been, I think, a message that we have been kind of beating the drum on for some time. And I think as people are coming into the workforce and as people are shopping around for employers, people want to do interesting work, so they want to do meaningful work. They want to have an opportunity to learn and grow, and we invest millions and millions of dollars in our tools and resources to help people do that. People want to do purposeful work, right? So getting back to, talking about what we do as a bank and why that's really so important to society and to the economy, and getting people really connected with that. And we talked earlier about flexibility. Flexibility is really important, and it's not just about child care and elder care, but giving people the flexibility to invest in these other aspects of their lives that they find quite meaningful. So that's
I see
the
Denise is
essence.
chomping at the bit.
I was just going to add, really that identifying and messaging that mission, mission driven, and ensuring that your workforce understands it. For us, we're the place families come to make memories. How amazing is that? You're not just operating the roller coaster or making the french fries. You're somewhere people can escape to build family memories, and ensuring that your team really understands how they contribute to that, and then building your whole culture around it. We spend more time working than probably any other singular task in our lives throughout the course of our lives. And you want to be a place that people want to be and spend their time. And I think using culture is a workforce strategy, and it's a retention strategy, and building it, all of these things are not siloed. They all flow one into the other, and that's what I hear my colleagues saying as well. And so I think being very intentional and mindful to that process, and ensuring that you're the place they want to be, and that you're linking all aspects of their lives, and you're a contributor to the betterment of their life, not through a paycheck, but through their growth, their development, and their purpose.
Sure. Deborah, you wanted to add something?
Just to add that we use our own employees as our ambassadors to recruitment. Once culture is exactly right. I mean, that culture is why people come and why people stay. But we have to get them in the door. So how do we get them in the door? We do, like everybody else, all the advertisements and social media and all that stuff. Everybody, it goes on all these Indeed and all that. But it's really the employees that are there selling to the people. And so we're telling stories. You talked about that before. Telling the story through the lens of an employee that works at the medical center. You couldn't ask for more of a sell than that. To say, come work with us. We're family oriented. We're caring, compassionate. I mean, those are just words, but hearing it from somebody that actually works there and lives there. And we could say, I could say all I want. We have flexible scheduling. We have a great app. We have this. We have that. We have great benefits. But it's the employees telling the world that this is a great place to work.
I think the other thing which we haven't talked is creating a really inclusive environment, right? And we spend a lot of time with our leaders and our managers, helping them to, learn how to be a more inclusive leader, right? So that people feel like they can belong, and particularly as we are, helping, trying to create some entry points for people who are on non-traditional paths. It's, sometimes they can feel like they don't belong. And so ensuring that we are really creating that inclusive environment and culture is really critical, and we spend a lot of time on that.
I want to throw a wild card question in here we didn't previously talk about that's kind of coming out of this conversation. We've talked about AI. We talked about inclusive environments and really attracting really good talent. One of the things I've encountered is I work with a local government entity, and they said, I don't want AI involved in our application, our ATS. I want to see all the applicants so they get a fair chance, and I don't want to discriminate on their resume. Are you all leveraging AI in your hiring process, and do you feel that everyone's getting a fair chance to be considered?
I'll take it quickly. We have thousands of applicants, but we're hand reading all of it. We're not using AI at all to filter some of these resumes. I think it's really important to get in front of every resume, because it becomes a game.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is really a difficult place because it starts to knock people out of the box.
It does.
And they may be the most qualified. So we try to comb through and make sure that we have more people in resource to comb through some of these resumes.
And were you going to say something?
I mean, we don't really use AI to help us source.
Okay.
You know, I feel like we probably should now, but we don't. I mean, we're more old-fashioned. We do go through the resumes. We have a recruitment team, talent acquisition partners. We use our internship program as a funnel. So yeah, we're not really leveraging that technology.
I just find it interesting because I do have some clients who use it in the interview process to screen with knockout questions and so forth, but a lot of people feel that locks out those candidate pools that we've been talking about today that want that opportunity to have a chance.
I mean,
So
what's interesting is that the candidates are often using it, right? And so you end up with like kind of we call it a sea of sameness. And so it is actually quite difficult because everybody has now tailored their resume to that particular job, and they all kind of look the same. So we're in a tricky situation right now.
I was going to say quickly, where we do use it is just to correspond back with the applicant.
Yeah.
We use an email system that just says, hey, we'll be back with you. This may take some time. Please, you'll hear from us. We just have a lot of people filtering it.
Well, because candidates get frustrated. They're getting the text messages from AI. They're getting the fake recruiters from AI. So we're coming up on time. So I'm going to leave it with one final question for all of you. So if you could change one thing about how we develop talent for future without bureaucracy or constraints, what would it be? And how do you think that would benefit New Jersey employers? It's a loaded question, I know.
That's your final question?
That was my final question.
That's a hard one.
We're summarizing everything.
my
What would you
gosh.
do differently?
I mean, I would just say if our programs don't result in employment and upward mobility, we're doing something wrong. I think the employers that are going to win are the ones that actually create opportunities for the talent that's out there.
Quickly, I'll just say for us and for our ecosystem, we rely heavily upon project labor agreements for unionized work, being able to recruit for union, and being able to have the jobs to place them on. So that allows us to hire locally and be able to work in the communities. So we rely on the municipalities, counties, state jobs, private jobs to implement those types of resources.
Denise, do you want to add anything?
Sure. We have great programs in the state. We have great intention, but we also have, I think, some fragmentation and some siloing. So I think we need to go back to some of BIA's suggestions with having a master plan for workforce and having it be streamlined and easy to enter and a clear roadmap. So we don't need more, we need clarity.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Susan?
and that's what I was going to say. I mean, I think what's overwhelming, quite frankly, when you sit in my seat, is trying to. I mean, there's so many great organizations out there, but the Lieutenant Governor talked about the puzzle. It can be, it's like a 5,000 piece puzzle, and you want to tear your hair out sometime. But everybody's doing great work. But if we could figure out how to bring it all together, and I do think in this world of AI. The need for partnerships and collaborations is going to be more intense than it has ever been. So I think we all have a responsibility to try to figure that out.
Well, thank you, ladies, for your time and for your words. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Thank you.